SpongeBob abandons his child and his wife for Ariana Grande. Cynthia Erivo dramatically releases a statement over a fan-made poster about erasure and covering her face. A misprint on the packaging of the dolls leads to a porn website. With all of this drama behind this freaking movie, it better be good. Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. Sorry if this camera's not in focus right off the bat because it is possessed by Satan. We are going to be talking about one of the two movies that debuted this weekend and is popping off. This video, we're going to be focusing on Wicked Part 1. I'm sorry, but I'm going to go off on, just real quick, a little bit of a tangent. Did y'all know it was going to be a part 1? Because I don't remember that in any of the promotional material. I mean, to be fair, I did kind of skip a lot of the promotional material. Like, I seen the trailers, the main trailers, didn't say part 1. But I did stay away from the other stuff. So maybe lost in translation. I might have missed it. But I feel like I'm not the only one that feels like they're going crazy because I do not remember seeing a part 1. It's not in the title. When the movie first started, I legit thought it was like a stylistic choice. Like, this is funny. You know how like Quentin Tarantino will he'll do like an act 1 and an act 2 and an act 3 throughout his entire movie. I thought that's what they were doing. They were gonna pull that, like a part 1 and then like later throughout the movie, part 2. No. You know, once we hit the end, I was like, already like 3 hours into this bitch. I realized then that they weren't kidding. And yeah. So Universal. The hell is that? So we're gonna start this review off by a little statement, another little statement. Not a tangent, just a statement. I have never seen the Wicked musical. Period. The end. I know. So this review is not going to come from a standpoint of comparing the Wicked musical to the movie. This is strictly going to come from the standpoint of a person reviewing a movie who's never seen the musical. Okay. I know the musical is based off a book, which is based off of the original Wizard of Oz, which might be based off of a book. I can't remember. Now, I have seen the original Wizard of Oz. What's funny though is like that wasn't actually my first introduction into the Land of Oz. It was actually the Muppets. Shout out. That was my first foray into the Land of Oz, and then I seen like the original Wizard of Oz, and then by that point I'd already heard about all the things that happened with like Judy Garland and everything, so it was kind of tainted for me. I also don't listen to musicals very often. I'm not, like, the musical genre is not something that I gravitate towards. Right off the bat, I think this movie is a great time. If you want to watch a movie for just pure escapism, you want to divulge into a fantasy world, you know sort of the things with the background of the Wizard of Oz, you will enjoy this movie. It was a lot more like comedic than I thought it was gonna be. The set designs was great. Very atmospheric, very stylish. You felt like you were really transported into like all these different areas of Oz. The Land of Oz itself is actually kind of fleshed out more in this movie. A lot of the setting of this movie takes place within this sort of like the Hogwarts of this universe, like I guess it's like a university or like a school. The special effects did a great job, honestly. I really didn't have any problems. Normally, like with these types of movies, sometimes like the CGI is a little wonky, and there are moments of that with like the CGI being like, oh, I can tell that animal's fake. But even with like the animals, like the goat professor, for example, excellent. He looked really great. And this movie like kind of gave me a bit of nostalgia in a way, and I think it was because it reminded me of like those fantasy movies from my childhood. So like it was giving Narnia, it was giving Harry Potter. You had like all these fantastical elements, and the set design, the setting, the characters, the costumes, the makeup, everything was just really well done, and it all tied well in together. And it being a musical also made it feel more of a fantasy. So that's why I'm saying this movie is like the perfect escapism movie. Speaking of like the musical elements of this, again, not a person, I don't really have anything to really compare it to. So like I can't say this is like one of the best musical movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't know. Like I prefer to see people acting, right? But I think this movie does a great job of like the characters showing their emotions through their singing, or knowing when to not sing and just have the emotions. Like I think sometimes when you're translating a musical to a movie, it can get a little wonky. But I think this one did a great job of knowing how to do that and how to let your actors act and then let them sing during the parts where they're supposed to sing, if that makes sense. Everything was just well acted. The two actresses, Cynthia Erivo being Elphaba, and then of course Ariana Grande being Glinda. Glinda. I think they did a really great job. Obviously, Ariana Grande, we know her as being a musical genius. We knew she can act because of her Nickelodeon days. And then Cynthia Erivo, she has a background in musicals, or like she comes from theater. With Cynthia Erivo, whenever she was singing, her voice is so smooth and soothing. Like, I felt like a baby being swaddled. I was like, ah, I like her voice. But her voice just like was perfect. I don't know. Ariana Grande did a great job, but some of the issues, and it was just mainly in the beginning, I think, that I had issues with her was that I couldn't understand what she was saying. Like, we know Ariana Grande can hit those high notes, especially with like when she was interacting with the, I almost said goblins. What? No. Oh my gosh, what are they called? The Munchkins. Holy crap. When she was interacting with the Munchkins, I was like, I don't know what she's saying. To be fair though, I will say with the sound design, sometimes it is the theater and not the movie's fault. I was in Dolby, I don't know if that counts for anything, but I was struggling to catch some of the things that she was saying. Luckily, it's like I already know what happened in The Wizard of Oz. Speaking of the two characters, they played off each other very well. The two actresses had great chemistry. Watching their character development, while unfinished, it still was like, oh, watching them grow together was like really satisfying. Glinda's journey throughout this movie was probably the most that you see a character grow. Now again, because this was split into two parts, we're not really finished with their character development. So I can't really speak too much on that. And I'll get into some issues that I had with the movie a little bit later. With Glinda's character specifically, it was kind of satisfying seeing her go from like this faux nice girl, sort of like the, I would say Regina George, but she's not like outwardly mean. She's more like Cher, I guess, would be the better comparison from Clueless, where like she's kind of pretending to be nice, but she's doing it for selfish reasons to make herself feel better. She's the type of character that like she will grow on you, right? Like she's purposefully supposed to be annoying, and I found her like funny, like even while she was being annoying, it was like, okay, she's kind of funny. She had like very like childlike tendencies and like tantrums. Whenever they finally develop their friendship, you finally see Glinda grow. This particular scene, which I'll get into in a little bit here, between her and Elphaba, which really changes the course of her character, where she genuinely starts to feel horrible about her selfish actions. We finally see her get to grow. I'm curious to see where her character is gonna go, because I genuinely don't know. Towards the very end, she starts talking, you know, once we get the reveal of the wizard and the madame of the school, her character kind of has to make this choice of, does she stay with Elphaba or does she help the wizard, who is supposed to be basically like the god of their universe, right? And she has to make this choice, and I'm curious to see like what steps we take from her going from that of still kind of being friendly with Elphaba to Glinda helping Dorothy kill her. If that's what really happens, I'm starting to have a theory that maybe that's not, everything's not what it seems. I don't know. And then with Elphaba's character, she sort of has this, the chosen one narrative placed on her. So, you know, she is different. Her skin is green. And for some reason in that world, that's not okay. She gets bullied her entire life. She's guarded. She comes off as being like this strong, independent woman who will take no shit. But, you know, we see her interactions with different characters where maybe that's not exactly the case. I really loved her interactions with the goat professor. I thought like that was really sweet. There was a moment where I did cry during this movie, okay? There was one moment where I almost did cry, didn't get me, between her and the goat professor when somebody like wrote animals shouldn't speak. Basically, they wrote like a slur on his whiteboard. It almost got me. The goat professor, I love that character. I think the moment that like really connected me with Elphaba's character was when she goes to the dance. Relatable. Relatable is the best way I can put it. You know, having those emotions, being laughed at, not great. It's not a great feeling, not a feeling I had in a long time, but definitely a feeling that I have had. So it did kind of bring up some emotions in me. Glinda realizes this is horrible. This is horrible what I've created. And then she joins her in the dance, and then Elphaba starts crying. That got me. That got me. It was a really great scene, I think. After that point too, we start steamrolling towards Oz. So when she gets on the train, finally gets invited, this is her dream goal. She's finally reached it. And she finally gets to make her one wish. watching her interactions with like the goat professor and like learning this plot going on behind the scenes and deciding to not be selfish and choose to help them instead. That was another strong character moment. But then a part of me was kind of like, well, how do we get from that point to her being the Wicked Witch? What I thought they were going to do with her character is kind of random, is what they did like in The Penguin with Sophia's character, right? So she has this title placed upon her. It's not something she wants, but it's something that the people around her drive her to. So she's supposed to be this villain role. Everybody and everything around her just keeps pushing her down and down and down until she finally snaps. And she's like, fine, you want a villain? I'll be the villain. So that's what I thought we were gonna go with her character. We still could go that way with her character. I just don't know how we get from point A to point B. I don't know, you're gonna have to retcon some things, right? I can't really, it's hard to like say anything or like judge because we haven't seen it yet happen. There was a sort of underlying plot that had to do with the talking animals. Didn't know there was talking animals, but here we are. And how there's something going on with them. There's this mystery of like what, even though it was pretty obvious once the golden cage with, you know, the whole Oz, and there was like a baby cub in there and it's like locked up in a cage. I mean, put 2 and 2 together, it's not that hard. But anyways, there's this whole plot of like what's going on with the animals, why are they disappearing, who's making them disappear, and I thought that was a very interesting plot. Now this is where we get into sort of my biggest gripe with this movie, which is that it feels like we didn't have enough time with that, or like enough time really truly developing it, because we spent a lot of time with the characters, and especially with Elphaba and Glinda, and developing their relationship and their storylines and their character arcs, but we didn't spend enough time, I felt, with the subplot of like the animals going missing. And then we sort of speed run, because again we spend like 75% of the time in the academy. Then when we finally get to the Emerald City, we don't get to spend much time with like the wizard and unfurling his whole plot. I mean, we do spend some time understanding kind of he's crazy. Obviously he's a charlatan. He's not really like this all powerful. It's all just an act. We knew that from the first Wizard of Oz. I mean, I'm okay with him being a villain, but it was just progressing to that. It felt a little rushed. I kind of wish we would have had more of him tricking Elphaba, a little more time spent with maybe building the Wizard of Oz as being like, maybe he's actually a good guy. Like, I felt like they should have tricked us a little bit more. Does that make sense? The teacher, the main Michelle Yeoh's character, I also felt like her turn it was obvious. Anybody with white hair like that, you're either gonna be a Targaryen or you're gonna be a villain. I kind of wish her turn would have also been more developed, if that makes sense, or her working with the Wizard of Oz would have been built up a little bit better. So that's kind of my biggest issue, is that they decided to split this into 2, because I felt like the ending was rushed, but I also feel like I can't judge too much, because we might get more of the Wizard of Oz and more from Michelle Yeoh's character in the second part. Maybe if I knew going into this that this was going to be a part 1 of 2, I'm assuming there's going to be 2. You know, they might be cruel and they might split this into 3. But maybe if I was prepared for that, I wouldn't feel quite as like, it's not that I feel dissatisfied. What's the word I would use to describe how I'm feeling? Betrayed. I feel like it's unfinished. This one, it definitely feels like you need that part 2 to understand how we get from Elphaba to the Wicked Witch of the West. How we get from Glinda, who is friends with Elphaba, to Glinda, who helps Dorothy kill the Wicked Witch of the West. Other than that, this movie, great, fun time, funny, emotional. Again, want something very fantastical, looks great. Music is also really good. The dance sequences, all of that was excellent. You could feel the emotions from both actresses. Honestly, I think all the drama behind the scenes actually was worth it. Maybe not that one, but even if you're not like a big musical girly like me usually, but I think I am now. I don't know. Fun time. I think that's gonna be it for today's video, because I got another one to film right after this. So I will see you guys on the next one. So goodbye and have a nice life and be nice to animals.